Oh, yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard, coming to you at the end of the day. About to head home. Sitting here thinking about the crazy jobs that I have worked in security. It's been such a wild ride, man. A lot of things that I did early on, they weren't necessarily licensed. Let's just say that. When you work in an environment like nightclub security. There's people that follow this channel that are bouncers right now, people that work in the nightclub environment. And a lot of times when you're working security in those environments, it's not a licensed gig. The security that I do now is something that's governed, it's something that's regulated. But in nightclubs, it's not always the case. A lot of times you're getting paid under the table. A lot of times you're working in these just crazy environments. And I have a little bit of experience with that. 2013, 2012, 2013, I was working security at a nightclub outside of Penn State. And I did this during the college season, right? So the kids would come in August, September timeframe, and then we would work all the way through May. But then June and July, when the college was out, there was no work in this area that I was in, so I would have to find other work. And so I got wind that there was a gay bar in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, right? So you got to remember, at the time, I'm living in like rural Pennsylvania. I'm living right outside of the Penn State area. That's where I'm working. But I got word that there was this gay bar in Harrisburg, and it was a really big bar, like 3 stories. It was right next door to the state capitol. So if you know anything about Pennsylvania, the state capital was Harrisburg, and it's crazy because literally you come off of the Capitol steps and right across the street, there's this gay bar. It's called Stallions, right? 3 levels. So I get word that they're looking for bouncers. So I put in my application to work out there, and immediately I get hired. I'm thinking to myself, like, this would be good work for me during the 2 months that school's out of session. Like, I can still work, and they were paying really good money, right? So the way that this worked is like I lived about an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours away from this location. So I would leave and go down early and, you know, just kind of, get myself ready or whatever, and then work this nightclub. And I would be there from like 7 o'clock at night until 2 o'clock in the morning. And this was such an interesting environment because like I had never been in a legit gay bar setting. Like this is something different. On the third level, they were running like their version of like American Drag Race, like whatever that show is that RuPaul does. Like they legitimately had like a training facility to like train future drag queens. I'm not making this up. Like that's what they did on the third floor. They would bring people in who were looking to be drag queens, and they would like train them and teach them and give them like den mothers. Like it was crazy. It was a real interesting environment, right? The second floor of this nightclub was just a run-of-the-mill, normal cisgender type nightclub. Like no matter what you were into, like it was just a regular nightclub. And then on the bottom floor, the basement, this was like the underground gay club, right? So depending on which level you were on, there was different music, different environment, different things that were going on. Like I had never in my life been around this environment or seen this kind of stuff. And it was very eye-opening. It was very eye-opening. Like the 2 months that I worked in this location called Stallions, like I saw things and witnessed things that I had never in my life. And I'm an older guy. I had never in my life seen. I say all that with due respect, with the utmost respect. Nothing that I'm saying is disparaging. I'm just sharing with you that this was a different experience for me and a different lifestyle environment for me to see a lot of the things that I was seeing. And some of the things that I learned about being in that environment, that have carried over into working in security and just living my life and being, a better person in general. Number one was to be more accepting of different communities because I had never been around that in my life. So that experience like exposed me to that community, exposed me to that lifestyle. And there's something amazing about being around people, whether you are in the military and you spend time in Afghanistan or Iraq, or you work in a prison population. Anytime that you're around a different demographic that you're not used to, if you allow yourself to like take advantage of it, you can really learn some things about people, right? So I learned a lot about that community being exposed to that. At the same time, another lesson that I learned was like how to be more empathetic to women. Because in this environment, even though I am not gay, I'm not homosexual, right? Like I was hit on a lot in this environment. And I had never been in a situation where like you're receiving unwanted attention. That's something that most guys aren't used to, right? So like receiving unwanted attention, getting hit on, having people touch you when maybe you don't want to be touched, those kind of things. Like that was very eye-opening for me as well. And I think that I learned a lot about empathy and understanding of what women go through being in that environment, right? So like I would go and I would work and I'd be at the door and people would say things, or people would like, make offers or advances towards you. People would try and buy you drinks, or guys would touch you, all kinds of things, right? And so that puts you in a situation where you have to learn how to handle those advances and handle those situations with tact and with respect and with like a level of understanding, because like you can't fight everybody and you can't take everything like the way that a lot of times guys would take that in that environment. If they're not homosexual, they're not gay, right? You got to remember that you're working in an establishment, you're working in a business. Like that was a different environment for me, right? But at the same time, it really did teach me and give me an understanding of what women experience in that. And I think that that made me a more empathetic person, right? So I'm working in this nightclub. I'm doing like the 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. thing. But again, I'm about 2 hours away from where I live. So I'm thinking to myself, like, how can I make this beneficial to me? I'm always thinking, like, how can I make this beneficial to me? And so there was a ton of strip clubs that were in the same location. And I'm thinking to myself, these strip clubs are open until like 5, 6 a.m. There's probably an opportunity for me to double my money. If I'm driving 2 hours to come down here, I'm working from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. And then the strip clubs are open until 5. Like, I'm going to go and offer my services to bounce at the strip club. Like, then I can like double my money and make the most of my time. So I go and fill out some applications at a couple of strip clubs. And before you know it, like one of them's like, yeah, we could use a bouncer. We'd like to hire you. Now, at the same time, this is 2012, right? There was something called the pickup community. So like right now, an area that's really popular on YouTube is the red pill community, right? But back in 2012, this red pill community was known as the pickup community. And I was really big into like reading this book called The Game that told you all about the algorithm of picking up women. Like it's crazy. It's crazy, right? My mind was in a weird place back then. Okay. But I had this obsession. I'm not afraid to admit this, okay? Even though it's gonna sound really cringe and I'm somewhat embarrassed to admit this, but I had this weird obsession with strippers. So like the thought process of potentially working at a strip club while at the same time being involved in this community, right? And reading this damn book that had my mind just like all spun out. It was too perfect. It was too perfect. So I get hired at this strip club and they're like, listen, you get done at this other location at 2 o'clock. It'll take you 15, 20 minutes to drive over here. Just work for us from 2:30 to 6 a.m. So I'm like, bet. So now I'm doing the gay bar from 7 to 2. I'm doing the strip club from 2:30 to like 6 a.m., right? So I started working at this strip club, bouncing, which is crazy, right? Like the environment there was even more insane than what I was dealing with at the gay bar. Like the things that I had never seen or been a part of at the gay bar, like it was times 10 at the strip club. In terms of like security or bouncing, like you're dealing with people that are hyper aggressive, people that are, drunk, people that are on drugs. You've got jealous boyfriends that are showing up. You've got, guys at the strip club and then their girlfriends are showing up. You've got the girls who are infighting with each other. Like there's just this whole crazy environment surrounding the strip club environment, right? And a lot of danger. Like when you're talking about guys and women and drugs and alcohol, like it can get out of control. Like the stuff that I saw, the stuff that I dealt with, like the underworld environment, the drug environment, it was crazy. It was bad and it was crazy. And like sometimes when I look back at it, I'm like, how did I even survive this, right? But remember, my sole purpose for wanting to work there was because I was so into strippers, right? So what happens when you're in that environment and you're a guy and this is something that you're into, right? Like you start trying to pick up on the strippers. And it wasn't long before me and this girl named Bobby, her dancer name was Bobby. I never got to know her real name, but her dancer name was Bobby. I was obsessed with this chick, right? Beautiful, blonde. I mean, just absolute smoke show. Everybody that worked there was into this chick, right? So for whatever reason, she's feeling me, she's into me. We start kind of flirting, we start talking. Next thing you know, like, it's on. Like we go and we get breakfast one morning and one thing leads to another. We hit a hotel room. So we go to this hotel room and what happens, right? So to speak. So we do what we do. And the absolute second that we finish, I mean, like the absolute second, she leans back and she says to me, "Oh my God, I got to tell you something." She goes, "My whole family is Aryan Brotherhood, all of them. And they have told me my entire life to never, ever hook up with a black guy. And I just had to do it just once. I want you to know something. This will never happen again. I am never going to talk to you again. I don't want anything to do with you. I just had to see what this was like." Now, for me, I didn't take that personal. I wasn't upset. I was like, hey, it is what it is. Glad that I could have been of service, right? But what do you know? My grandma, I grew up in Arkansas. My grandma used to say, when your legs get tangled up, so does your emotions. And wouldn't you know it, that it wasn't long after that first experience that me and Bobby start talking, right? So we're talking, we're texting, we're hanging out, and before you know it, we end up going back to the hotel a second time, right? So this second time, instead of me just going home like I should have, I take her out to breakfast. The same little restaurant that was right next to the strip club that we hung out at the first time. It's like 7:45, 8 o'clock, and we're having breakfast and we're sitting there. And she looks up and all of the blood just runs from her body. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, what's going on? And she says, my brothers are in the parking lot. Now I'm thinking she's joking, right? Because we've had the conversation, like she's told me her history, the situations with her family or whatever. And she's like, no, I'm dead serious. My brothers are in the parking lot. And I turn around and I look, and it looks like it's like an older Ford Bronco, and the guys that are standing around it look like the cast from American History X. And I'm like, oh, fuck this. Like, if you guys have ever seen the Goofy like character on the Disney cartoons, like where he like literally like slinks down into his seat and just melts into the floor, that was me. I literally army crawled on my hands and knees to the back kitchen of this restaurant, and I waited until I could run out the side door. I got into my vehicle and I drove about 80 miles an hour until I was about 20 to 30 miles outside of Harrisburg, and I never went back to that strip club. I never went back to the gay bar. I never went back to the strip club. I stayed the fuck out of Harrisburg until I moved from Pennsylvania. I never got my last paycheck. I left my jacket there, like nothing. I was done. Like literally was not trying to find out what was going to happen from that situation. That's my Nazi stripper story, right? And what did I learn in that environment? What did I learn in that situation? Well, I learned that just because you can do certain things doesn't mean that you should. Just because you desire to do certain things or have certain experiences, it's not necessarily worth it in the end, right? I learned some great, valuable lessons working at the gay bar, but I learned some amazing life lessons working at the strip club. Like, when I look back and think about that time, I think about that situation, I think about like what all could have happened, where things could have gone. It makes me shudder. Like, it was so stupid for me to be in that situation and put myself in that environment. I don't know. I just wanted to share that. I don't know that I necessarily have like a solid way to end that story, and I could be way more graphic in that story than I was, but there are some valuable lessons, and the valuable lesson was that, that experience was not worth what it could have cost me. And guys, I'm joking about it right now, but it really could have cost me my life. Like, I don't think those guys were playing around, you know? Let's see what some of these comments say. Somebody said, "What's up, Paul Blart? How are you? I take that as a compliment." Dancer says, "I just subbed to your channel from Melbourne, Australia. Hey, how are you, my man? I would love to make it to Australia at some point in time." Somebody says, "Are you a cop or security?" I am a security guard. I am not a cop. I am not a cop, nor do I have a desire to be a cop. This person says, "Now that's a lot of drama. Gay bars and strip clubs. Yeah, you have no idea." Yeah. Somebody says, "East Oakland in the house. How are you, man?" Certified security guard says, "You almost lost your life chasing after them white women." Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. You know what's crazy that you said that? I had a conversation with my partner today, my work partner. I said, when I was a kid, I'm 45. When I was a kid in the 90s, interracial dating was such an issue. It wasn't like forbidden, but I grew up in Arkansas. Like, it wasn't something that was easy, and I've always had an attraction to white women. I've always been into white girls. My dad, my mom, they grew up under Jim Crow. They grew up in segregation. My parents went to segregated high schools. And so, I had really good parents. My dad told me very early on, he was like, "Look, I am never going to tell you who you can and who you can't date." He goes, "But you need to understand that just because you are okay dating white girls, and just because certain white girls are okay dating you, that doesn't mean that the world is going to be okay with it. And it doesn't mean that everybody's going to co-sign it." He goes, "So if you're going to live this lifestyle, if you're going to do that, you need to be okay with whatever comes from that. And you need to be strong enough to handle it." He says, "What you're not going to do is come home crying because somebody's dad said that they couldn't date you. What you're not going to do is come home and complain to me because someone said something about you and your girlfriend, or someone looked at you a certain way, or someone had some sort of issue. If you're going to live this lifestyle, you're going to accept it, you're going to own it, and you're going to deal with whatever the repercussions are." Right? And I did that. I was dating white girls when it was not popular. I was dating white girls when it wasn't easy, and I was in Arkansas. I wasn't on the East Coast. I wasn't, up in New York City. Like, I was in Little Rock, Arkansas. But I say all that to say that I am at a point in my life, and I've been at a point in my life where I'm completely comfortable saying that I like what I like. I love who I love. and I like and love white women, and I have no problem saying that. Okay, let's see what else we got. Hey man, how's it going tonight? I'm doing good. Nordamus, whatever that is. And he says, as a white guy who's dated black women, it definitely goes both ways. Yeah, man. Hey, famous quote from the movie Boogie Nights. Rock what you dig. You know what I mean? I think more people need to be comfortable in their own skin. And you know what? The great thing about 2024, the last 5, 10 years, like people are so comfortable being who they are. That's another thing that I learned working that gay bar. Be comfortable who you are. Be comfortable in your own skin. Be comfortable loving who you love, doing what you do. That was another lesson that I had to learn a lot later in life because that wasn't how I grew up and that wasn't how society was when I was younger. You know what I mean? But that was a positive that I learned in that environment as well. So it was that was a good thing. Guys, I like coming on here and just chopping this stuff up with you guys. Like, my channel is all centered around security guard content, but a lot of these conversations, they far exceed just security. Like, we're talking life. These are life lessons and things that I learned in that environment. And for some of you who don't follow my channel or you're not subscribed to my channel, these conversations after work, they give me an opportunity to, just kind of have these streams of consciousness, and I appreciate you guys doing that. Yep. Yes, I am an armed guard. All right, guys. Well, it's almost time for dinner. It's been a very, very long day, and I hope you guys enjoy being a part of this conversation, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Somebody says, off subject, but why are you not interested in being a real police officer? I have had multiple offers to be a police officer. I used to be a state constable, which is very similar to a sheriff's deputy. I used to be a corrections officer. My issue with not being a police officer is that, number one, I have over 30 tattoos. That has always been an issue. Number two, I have a historical understanding of the systemic issues that surround policing. And although I think that I would make a great police officer, sometimes the people who are in that industry do not mesh well with my ability to articulate myself and understand some of the problems that fall within policing. So at the end of the day, I don't know that it's necessarily the place for me. And I'm getting a little bit older. I'm 45 years old. I'll be 46 in June. I'm just tired of the bureaucracy. I like my job. I'm very, very good at my job. And I feel that I have a good niche with what I do. And I make really good money. All right. Someone says, at the end of the day, we are all humans with different skin tone and complexions and our environmental survival. Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. We're all humans. All right, guys, listen, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Got to get home to my beautiful wife. All right. Y'all be safe.